it's been a while since we've had best on best. In the middle of the season, especially. We talk a lot, and it feels like every year I end up talking to different people about this, about like how goaltending deals at the trade deadline are so hard to pull off or so hard to be effective because there's such little runway left, like 15 to 20 games, and your new number one isn't going to play them all, and that's not enough time to get used to the individual tendencies of new teammates. Systems, I mean, systems are, there's only so many variations on systems in hockey, and goalies are generally pretty bright people. They pick it up pretty quick. It's the individual tendencies within those systems. I mean, we saw Colorado change its goaltending and lauded them for doing it earlier so both guys would be comfortable. Now you take the best shooters in the world and throw guys in with a couple practices and say, here you go. Talked to a couple guys that have been part of this at an Olympic level in the past, and they said it's almost like going from the AHL to the NHL in terms of the guys in front of you are all where they're supposed to be to the nth degree. They all do what they're supposed to do. And so in some ways the transition is easier. But I do think we're seeing a little bit of, it's not easy to change teams, to change teammates, to not know those tendencies as well as you might have in the past when, maybe you're getting together every 2 years as they will moving forward. And I think outside of one guy, we've seen a little bit of ups and downs. I don't know that we've seen the best, frankly, out of any of these goaltenders, not named Connor Hellebuck. Although hat tip to Sam Ersson for, a really great performance in Philadelphia, coming out of Philadelphia, and probably an eye opener because I've seen a lot of criticism of the Flyers goaltenders this year, and they have some of the low expected save percentages, some of the toughest defensive environments of the year, and so it was nice for him. A guy who takes a lot of heat in Philly to sort of show people, hey, like give me a good defensive environment, and this is what I'm capable of.
How much of this is about communication as opposed to team style?
I think, I mean, communication can help fill the gap in those tendencies, right? But like when I talk about tendencies, John, it's like, where is a defenseman going to pitch off an odd man rush? Is he going to pressure at the blue line? Is it closer to the top of the circle? Will he let that guy get closer to the hash mark? And even within team systems, there are individual tendencies within there that you learn to read off. What guys you can trust to have a stick in the lane? What guys are just going to leave that lane and let you have the shot? And so there's more individual habits there that I think, talking about this mostly again for the trade deadline over the last number of years and why goaltending hasn't been a bigger part of it or why it hasn't succeeded when there are goalie trades. How long it can take goalies to adjust to those little individual tendencies. And at the end of the day, it's the best players in the world, right? Like the best shooters in the world. I think the defensive play has actually been, for the most part, really good. I don't know, if I'm honest, if all the goalies have matched it.
Jordan Binnington against Connor Hellebuck in the final. Let's focus on those two. Are you surprised, one, that Canada went with a single goaltender throughout? And where have you seen Binnington get better throughout this tournament?
Not surprised that it's Binnington and not surprised that they went with one throughout. I think once you got through the second game, that's a tough time to switch because now you're in win or go home time. By the time you play Finland in the third, it's such a short tournament. If you go to another guy who's never been in this situation before and he has even the slightest hiccup, that might be it. Right. And so knowing what you have in Jordan Binnington, I mean, obviously the late 6-on-5 goals against Finland, but I thought he played really well in that game. What you've seen out of him that has started to get a lot more notice and attention maybe than it did going into the tournament. It's just how effective he is with the puck behind the net. And especially against the Americans, as good as they are on the forecheck, as punishing as those big bodies can be on the forecheck physically, when you think of what a Brady Tkachuk brings to the game, and you saw some of the hits, the one on Doughty had me shuddering. Binnington's saving them a lot of those hits. He's helping them with clean transitions. You get a little nervous when the narrative becomes so strong, when people start to pick up on it and talk about it so much. You saw how confident he was with it in the Finland game. If I'm the Americans and I've got really skilled defensemen, I'm pump faking at some point. I'm making the same dump in 3 or 4 times in a row, and then I'm pump faking one and firing it at the net to see if I can get him to go a little early. But his reads and his quickness to get back and stop pucks, it's not just the little chips and little plays that he makes so effectively, so patiently, and he almost always in the right spot to sort of help them transition. It's how often he gets out and stops it. The difference between a defenseman having his back to the boards as he peels the rim off and skating back behind the net to pick up a puck that Binner stops and leaves. I mean, that's night and day, especially when you're playing against the best teams in the world, especially when it's against a forecheck like the Americans are capable of. The ability to transition out of your own end. As we know, doesn't matter how good your forwards are, if you can't get them the puck in stride, you're going to have a tough night. And I think he probably is a big part of them having a chance to do that. Although, having said that, again, I think the U.S. team's probably going to be a little more cognizant and a little more smarter with how they dump it in.